And there's a lot of things that I had said regretfully and done things regretfully that every day I wish I could take back in my life. And there are things that I should not have said, things I should have said, things I should have done, things I should not have done. But in the end, sometimes it triggers a part of PTSD, like trauma, negative afflictions into my feeding poison into my soul and my veins and my heart. Because someone who had a broken heart, someone with a damaged soul, and sometimes the only way to cure it for my haunting memories is drink myself into an oblivion. You know, I used to be a pretty bad, severe alcoholic. I had an addiction to alcohol for about a few months. You know, every night I would come home and drown out my consciousness or memories. It's the greatest blessing I have to remind myself is the mortality of being alive, the gift that the creator in the universe is constantly reminding me, feeding me divine messages and symbolisms. The grand architect of the universe has delivered to me the abundance of prosperous messages that I constantly feed from reassurance, and I'm constantly feeding my intentions right back into the universe of my positive creative path workings for the future of not only myself but for the world around me. And I find myself that a blessing that regardless of how dark my emotions become or my headspace, my drowning in my mental health or my mental state and of all my past trauma and my memories, it defines, but it does not define who I am now today. Collectively, I take all my personal experiences and it helps me to thus become therefore stronger and wiser, more knowledgeable. I'm having to learn from my experiences. I'm learning from of all my mistakes that I had done and committed in my past. And I've started learning to how to forgive myself and not hate myself, And despite all my heartbreaks and tragedies and deaths that I had to experience this year and all throughout my life, I'm having to remind myself that mortality is a blessing to be alive, no matter who you are, no matter where you're at in life. You could be celebrating at the top or at the bottom, or stuck in between two pillars in the cliff off the Sephiroth, the tree of life, or the tree of death. But in the end, you are what you envision yourself to be, and your reality is however and whatever you perceive it. So mindset is absolutely everything. That's what I'm always having to remind people all the time, to think positive as much as you can. Just celebrate life. Take your blessings in life one day at a time. That you are someone, that you are enough. You matter, if for no other reason, if not to anybody else, then you matter most to yourself. And nobody will ever tell you that. But you heard it from me, because I barely hear it from others to me personally growing up. So this is a lesson in one of the mortality and reminders that I have to be this positive example and a role model to tell you that you are enough. So, like I said, I've become an absolute douchebag lately. I started detaching myself, started ghosting, burning bridges. I've become brutally honest. I've burned bridges. I just done it all for the past couple of weeks. I started becoming this creature of becoming unrecognizable. It's surreal how blackened and dark this particular rabbit hole would travel down if you should find yourself drowning and submerging deeper and deeper. Sometimes you feel like there's no hope or light. There's no light enough to see, to have innate faith, to see yourself, to swimming to the surface just to get some air, breathe in that oxygen. But here lately, I was at a point where it was so dark. It was a place that was darker, blacker than black, darker than anywhere I've ever had traveled to before. And I have to remind you that regardless of whatever you are facing in life, just keep going in life. And while creating this video, it's a reminder to myself, like, I'm speaking these words outwards, feeding it into the universe, but I'm having to remind myself as I'm sitting here talking to this camera, creating this video, that I have to become better than myself. You know, I have to find my grounding again, because as a gray practitioner, I've always embodied light and darkness, but as of lately, like I said, I've just been just absolutely dark and macabre, and yeah. So I have to remind myself to find blessings in all that I do, because you know, like I said, I don't fuck with nobody. Well, despite being an imperfect human being, every day of my life I'm constantly trying to better myself. And while I recognize my sins, my imperfections, and you know, everything else, I'm having to remind myself that, you know, as long as I'm doing the best that I can, that's all that matters in this life, in this world. And I'm always reminding myself that I have a beautiful heart, I've got a beautiful soul and personality, and my intentions are positive and clear. I have a clear conscience for everything that I do in my life. And despite not being perfect, I'm always having to try to become better every day of my life.